got my own sign. That's like $20.
Monday, December 18th, 2017. Like to open up the Water and Sewer Commission. I think the last one of the year too, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
All right, let's go out with a bang. So, Paul, if you'd like, anybody here for public forum? Paul, why don't you go ahead with the minutes?
Mr. Chair, we have a few bills to pay and an abatement, so I'd like to make a motion to pay the following bills. Osterman Propane, $1,120.11. EDS Mechanical to replace a field heater unit, $4,030. Veolia, for some overtime they did, $1,560. And Bigelow Electric for generator service, $245. And Russo Brothers, this is that hydrant that had to be replaced on Route 20, $10,750. Next, we have Veolia, again for a PS repair, $765. And Veolia, again, for some tank valves, $6,477.98. That concludes the bills, and on the same motion, we have one abatement. It's a senior abatement, 45 Burlingame Road, for $31.50. That's it for this.
Is the EQ tanks, the check valves and all that stuff, we originally,
The valves are here, they're gonna try and install them in January.
okay. What was the 6,000? Which one was that?
Those were the valves.
Okay, just the parts or the?
Yes.
Okay. That's the check valve pit, right?
I believe it is, yeah.
Okay.
Certified with keys,
Yep,
Mr. Chair.
go ahead.
Hydrant, that is the one that we're hoping that the insurance will get back to us on?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
This hydrant's being paid out of a miscellaneous insurance reimbursable fund. It's not coming out of our budget. So when we get reimbursed from the insurance company, it'll go right back into the general fund.
Okay.
So it doesn't affect our budget one bit, because it's an insurance claim.
Can we do it as two separate motions, warrant and then abatements?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the warrants as listed.
I made a motion, but we could
Yeah,
go for a
she's gonna
second.
make another one. Second that one.
All right, then I'll second it then.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of minutes to review
Oh,
the,
hold on, then we gotta
Oops.
do the abatement.
oh, okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following abatement, the senior abatement for $31.50.
I need to abstain because I do get a senior abatement.
I'll second that, so.
All right, motion is second, because there's only two here that can vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. All right, minutes for review.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for December 4th, 2017. That was the last regular meeting.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Why does everything not work for me?
Should I give you a packet too?
You have a
packet, right?
Yeah, but
It's loading.
Okay. Okay, motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
And one more, Mr. Chair, the approval, make a motion to approve the minutes of December 11th, 2017, which I believe was interviewing process for our candidate for assistant.
Yep.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Abstain, I wasn't here. Okay.
That's it for me.
John, you wanna grab key?
Yeah, I was just gonna text him, tell you guys are moving.
We could always skip
Do you wanna jump down to the water and sewer tie-in permits and procedures real quick? I mean,
That's what I'm thinking. Give them a few minutes. Let's see.
Can we put on the next agenda the senior abatements?
No.
Well, no, because I know this one was turned in late and everything, and it says must be in by. So I think we need to either relook at the process or do something.
Okay.
yeah, I'll put the whole packet in.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right.
So, Mr. Chair, you'll see attached in the packet, I attached the, there's a couple of different sewer connection applications that are floating around the office, and it seems like different ones are used at different times.
Okay.
So what I did was I tried to, the first page, you'll see the procedure for sewer and tie-in permits. You'll see the front application page. Then there's a tie card sketch and the application for metered billing, because all new sewer connections have to be on the metered billing. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that the process is how the commission wants it to be, because myself being new and the new assistant coming in, I just want to make sure that we're consistent and we, both her and I learn the same way, and we're doing what you guys expect of us.
Just give me 1 second.
I'm giving you.
So if I do recall,
We can always come back to this after if you want to go. Veolia.
Here's the Yola. Who's gonna do the minutes? Might be able to help you out.
Thank you.
okay.
You can
Set.
start, I can sign and.
Sorry about that. All right. So what's the, this is the current one, right?
I kind of mixed a couple of them together.
Okay.
So currently, we have the Charlton Sewer Connection application, which you'll see on page 103. That's the one-page application.
Okay.
What I did was I grabbed the tie card off of the water connection, the water permit, and put it on there so it's part of it. And then I added the application for metered billing, because any new application has to go on metered billing.
Correct.
There's no more flat rate, so.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that I want to just consolidate all this together, so anyone coming in for an application gets all three of these pieces of paper.
Yep.
And the first page for a procedure for sewer tie-in permits, I just found this sitting in one of the files on the shared folder in the computer.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure that this is, I guess, how you want, the steps you want us to take. Again, so I know what you guys are expecting, and I know how to train the new person to make sure that we have consistency in the office. The water connection application is a little bit more straightforward. So I think this was done a little bit later, so it was a little more kind of comprehensive and should be pretty easy just to move forward. I think we only have one. But the sewer was a little bit confusing because it's just different iterations of the application process that have been there since
Now-
1990s.
I thought we had gone to just the second, this last one, the application for water. But I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've done
Well, there's gonna be two separate, there's gonna
any
be,
sewer tie-ins.
yeah, there's gonna be an application for water and an application for sewer, so.
If you want my opinion, I would just do one.
For water and sewer?
Yeah. Because it's all the same information. And then you can just, if it's not water, just, underline sewer or water,
Okay.
Or have a check,
right?
check box.
Yeah, exactly. Sewer or water, because the responsible property applicant, contractor.
Yeah.
And then the second one already has any of the Southbridge review, if need be.
Okay.
Highway, it's already on there, town collector. So I think the second one Because we did the second one because it was just to make sure nobody really fell through the cracks.
Right.
And then the other thing part was to make sure that people were pulling electrical permits and plumbing permits. So I would, you know, I personally would just stick with the second one. I
And
think it's-
add sewer to
Yeah.
the, okay.
I mean, don't you agree?
We could streamline it.
You
So
know-
can they get 2 permits with 1 application? They just pay both fees?
Yeah, I wouldn't see why not. You know, you might have to, you know, add a line or two in here and there.
I'll probably have to add a second page, but it'll be complete.
Because let me think what's up with this first one.
Because, well, sewer doesn't have to go to Southbridge is the thing,
Correct, so you just write NA,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
If it can be streamlined, I don't see why we
All right,
shouldn't.
I can work on that.
Because the only thing I'm gonna probably say is waste and dig safe water sewer is, with the town collector, that would probably go to, do they pay us the fees?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, obviously down the road, we're gonna set up a water privilege fee, or, you know, something like that. So I would just, you know, forethought, have it already in here. You know, maybe right up on the top, you know, just put, you know, a box, you know, box sewer
Okay.
fees,
Yeah.
and then water, you know what I mean? And then do something simple like that. Because we have a straightforward for the sewer, right? Yeah. EDU.
Yes.
So, because then you can just write in there, you're gonna be granting the permits.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if it's a single bedroom, you know, the $8,200 or whatever, boom, there it goes, or if it was already paid,
Yeah.
right? And if it's water, vice versa, so. And then if it's a big one and they come to the board, you know, we
Right.
can just put a letter attached to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Make sense?
yeah, we can do that.
Just trying to think if there's anything else.
Well, Peter's gonna, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Peter's gonna look at it, see if he can revise it,
Yeah.
and if we see anything in the next
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks while we're wrapping presents and all that good stuff.
Okay, good, yep. No, the plumbing and electrical in there is fine, perfect. And, yeah,
Awesome.
you agree?
Yeah. Nope,
Make it
I'll
easy.
work it combining and making sure. Yeah, it would be a lot easier just to have one application and just check the boxes that are required for what they're applying for and make it work.
Yeah,
That'll be good.
okay. All right. Ready? It's right on the money, 6:40, so.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Way to start off.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody.
How are you?
For the MOR for the Charlton wastewater treatment plant for November. There was no safety and accidents or incidents. The monthly safety checklist was completed. The safety training for the month of November was completed. In regards to compliance, there were no MPDES permit exceedances in the month of November. I've attached the plant performance report. And for operation and maintenance activities, weekly and monthly maintenance checklists were completed. The weekly generator full load exercise was completed, no issues. All preventative maintenance work orders were completed, and the final inspection and maintenance was completed on COMAG train number 1, so it's ready to go online. The annual heating system inspection and servicing was completed by EDS. RBCs number 4 and number 8, the drive belts had to be replaced. And the monthly critical alarm tests were completed, that we've been doing monthly now. And the high core screening unit was back in service on November 27th. It's been working fine, no issues, quiet, no vibration, so it's great to have it back up and running. And for pump station activities, all the pump station's alarms were tested, no issues. And the full load generators were tested, no issues. The MTAs were sampled on November 12th and November 26th. Under the collection system activities, there was only 3 grinder pump calls. One was at 19 Lakeview Drive for a high-level alarm. The pump on float switch was not turning the pump on. The float itself tested okay. At that point, Ed LaForte was called in and determined that the ATC switch isolator was bad, which controls the floats. It's an orange box that's in the panel. He replaced that and there was no issues with the system. On 58 Vine Street, the breaker kept tripping. The pump was pulled and inspected. It was determined the pump was bad. The pump was replaced and the system was tested, no issues. And this had been an upgraded system. And then on November 24th at 61 North Sturbridge Road, the maintenance light came on, which was one of the older systems. The pump was pulled and inspected, no issues were found. The pump was put back in and the power was restored. The maintenance light was off. Ran 2 complete cycles and there was no issues with it. And there were 18 dig safes marked out for the month of November. And I've added some additional notes. We put secondary clarifier number 1 online. It's been running for 2 weeks now, no issues. And we've also started the seeding process of RBC number 3, which is gonna be the last one. And we'll have 8 of them online. So that'll put all available equipment online for optimizing and maintaining the process control.
The other thought there, Commissioners, was to preempt, the additional loading we're seeing, and to, try to maximize as much removal as possible during the winter months.
And then also back in February, we had the 2 RBCs, 1 and 2, we had those evaluated. So I just highlighted the information that was given to us back then. And obviously, we don't have our new permit yet, but a permit writer has been assigned. So depending on what comes out of the new permit, will determine what technology that we can look at to maintain process control. And then also, we have the expenditures for the month of November. The actual was $1,117.48. And we've also attached what the items were. So we came in under the 2,500, which is budgeted for the month. And then lastly, we have the total up to November 1st. Comes out to the $8,980.55 that we talked about, that I provided Peter with info.
Yeah, I didn't bring that, sorry.
Okay.
Keith,
No problem.
So, we talked, I guess, in October, the second meeting in October, about the true-up for the year end, based on the overages over the 2,500 per month.
Yep.
Keith brought some paper this afternoon that showed where we finally are with the tally, and it's an additional 8,000.
Yes.
8,000 and change for the true-up. They're waiting for a couple more invoices.
Okay.
So once we get all that stuff, I'll present it to you guys either on the 8th or the 22nd, when they're back in front of us for the next MOR.
Okay.
And we'll do that true-up. And all those additional fees per month, we have that information. I'll dig that up from the meeting when it was all presented to you. So everything's together and you can see where it came from.
Okay. Yeah, and just go through, make sure too that the stuff's allocated right. You know what I mean? Like if there isn't anything, if something happened and it needs to be in another line item, so it doesn't look like that budget is going through the roof when it's
Whether
not.
it's a pass-through versus a limit expenditure.
Exactly,
Yeah, I think you guys already took a first glimpse at it when it was presented last time, and I think it was pretty itemized, and everything,
Yep.
all the larger charges were pretty much itemized and accounted for, so it should be pretty Once I get all the information together, it should be pretty clear.
Now, you know, I think you guys are aware of this. The kind of the thing we had with Woodard and Curran was, it was more of an annual budget. We just broke it down monthly. So, if you spend $5,000 in June, you know what I mean? It's not the,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? It's more of, do what you need to do, keep the plant running, but, you know what I'm saying? It's more of an annual budget just broken over 12 months.
Right.
I mean, just, I think you guys know
So
that,
basically,
but-
1 month, if you spent $3,500, the next month you spent $1,000.
Yeah, you
It's
know,
still-
try and keep it, but exactly.
Correct.
But it's, you know, it's, and I think too, we'll probably, in the future, look at, whether that needs to be adjusted or not, or I think we talked with Peter a couple meetings ago, kind of fine tuning this maintenance budget, you know, things are getting older, this and that, you know what I mean, and just,
Correct.
you know,
Absolutely.
getting some flexibility and getting some stuff going. I don't,
Yeah, I think at the time that we prepare the five-year capital plan, might be a good opportunity to look at whether or not, you know, it might be a good workshop to do both at the same time.
yeah, because a $2,500 budget might work in year 1 through 5, but it's not at, you know what I mean, from 5 to 10 and 10 to 15, and, you know, it's just not the same.
Oh, yeah, and things, as they get older, get, like a car, get exponentially more
Exactly.
expensive to maintain them, certainly.
So, you know, and we wanna keep things fluid. We don't want you to, you know, have to keep waiting or this and that, so. We don't want you to waste the money, but.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, it was a bit busy first year, you know, we certainly had a learning curve ourselves in terms of what was critical and what wasn't. There were some, you know, initial things we needed to get our hands wrapped around, particularly the SCADA. And this whole high core thing and the alarms and stuff like that, but I think going into 2018, we feel pretty confident. We know, you know, what's out there and what seems to be fine, so.
Yes.
I have a
There's
question.
no substitute for experience.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. So the grinder pump on 61 North Sturbridge Road, there was no issue. The maintenance light came on and went off. So are we checking back to see if there's something, or we're just leaving it? And I don't know what the protocol is.
What it is the older systems had 2 different boxes, and there was like a cycle time in there, which then the maintenance light would come on, tell you the pump would need to be serviced, so it was pulled and inspected. There was no issues found with it, so it was
Yeah,
reinstalled.
it's sort of like the light indicator in your refrigerator on the filter. Doesn't really measure how dirty the filter is, it's just a timer.
Okay,
You know, and then once
Yeah.
the timer goes off, it's like, hey, you
Right.
wanna check your filter, and that's sort of
Okay.
what this thing did.
Correct.
thank you very much.
Was it an after-hours call or just doing their?
It was after hours.
So, because how does that just get billed to us, or is that, so
Yes.
that doesn't get billed to the customer, right?
No.
Because it wasn't really their fault?
Right. It's a grinder pump call, and that's the protocol that we follow.
Yep. How's the luck been with those newer pumps? You guys having a lot of calls with them?
We're not having a lot of calls. It appears to be that the floats seem to be an issue sometimes, and then other times we have none. I mean, the calls have been minimized. We're down to roughly 2 to 3 calls a month, so
Okay.
we've seen a decrease on the calls coming in. The systems run good. We had a couple of issues with the wire restraint on one of them. The corrosion had ate right through. I think those were in the pictures of last month's report. And we had a couple of other issues, but, I mean, I guess overall, it's a good functioning system.
They're doing pretty well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 3 per month is a good.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually 5-10% is, you know, what I've always seen.
Sure.
So, you know, if you got a couple hundred pumps out there, you know, 30 a year ain't that bad.
No.
Okay.
John found a discrepancy in the contract for the annual CPI increase.
Yeah, it was, when, you know, obviously you come up on the year, we gotta
Well,
reconcile.
whose favor is it in?
Actually, it's in Violi's. What it looked like, Commissioners, is that the language that's in that exhibit there were 2 issues. One, it appeared that it was a carryover from the previous contract, so the starting CPI date was of 2011. So you can imagine a 2011 CPI start date and a 2017 end date. It's a big number. So that would I calculated it would mean about almost a 10% increase in the fee for Veolia, which I don't think was the intent of the commissioners. I think it was just a carryover. I think it was meant to be 2016 date instead of a 2011. The second issue is I think the RFP process anticipated a July 1 start date. So the date of the CPI was March to give you time for the July. The contract didn't get executed until November.
Yep.
So if I were to keep those March dates, we'd have to go all the way back. So those were the two issues I found. Again, I think they were just, you know, one was a carryover, the other one I think just anticipated an earlier date. So I recommended we go with a 2016 start date for the CPI, which was the year before. And then move the dates to November to November. The CPI that was chosen only comes out quarterly. So it would either have to be September or November, you know what I mean? So my recommendation, and I presented it to Peter, was to go with just a change in the exhibit that says we'll use November to November, and we'll do 26-16 as the initial CPI start date. And both are to the benefit of the commission, not to Veolia, and that's kind of how I presented it. Because I didn't.
What'd you say, 26? What?
2016. You know, you have
Yeah,
an initial start
yeah.
date and an end, and then the difference is the CPI adjustment.
Yeah.
If we use 2011, which is in the contract, it's gonna be almost a 10%
Correct, but
increase.
what quarter? Or do you wanna just use the year, doesn't matter?
November.
Yeah.
Well, we could use, we
So
could use
be
whatever
September?
quarter you want.
Okay.
I chose November simply because, you know, it's the date that the
Okay.
contract started. If I use September of 2016, we weren't here, you know what I mean? So it's, but
Yeah, but didn't you just say it started quarterly? Or the
the
CPI was?
CPI only comes out quarterly, so you
Yeah.
don't have the option of saying October, which would have been the best thing, right, the month
Yeah.
before. So you either need to go 2 months before or the month of. And I
Okay.
just thought the month of made sense, but
Yeah, no, that's fine.
either, yeah, it's only a quarter amount of time, and, you know, it doesn't really change that much.
So you can probably just draft an amendment.
John drafted something up, we got it Friday afternoon, so
Yeah.
I'll, review it and I just wanted to kind of have a
I
quick
think that should be
conversation
fine.
about it, and we'll have it for your next meeting.
You feel
Yeah.
confident?
Yeah, it's good, yeah, it streamlines it and puts it in perspective, and the timeline is in line with what the contract is.
Yep.
And again, like John said, if we go with what's in the contract, they're gonna get a 10% increase this year. And it was supposed to be done on July 1, where they've only been here for 6 or 8 months at the time, so.
Yep, I agree.
It's
Yeah, I
just
don't-
a
yeah.
little bit of house cleaning. John did, again, I'm gonna review what he submitted, and I'll have it ready for your next meeting.
Thank you so much. That's very nice of you.
Again, you already had your agenda, so I didn't wanna just keep throwing things
I
to add
agree.
on to the meeting. It wasn't part of it, so we can discuss it during the next meeting, finalize it, and then that'll apply to your December bill, correct?
Yeah, it'll just be a red metro.
Excellent.
Okay.
John,
That completes the
yeah.
report.
Thank you, Keith.
That completes
John, you gonna
everything.
stick around for a
Yeah,
little bit?
yeah, that's what I
Appreciate it.
So just bringing this up to the next part, I think you might be good, Keith, but, what is it, the IRP? Is it the, industrial
The IP, no, Carl Stortz.
IPP? Did we decide to initiate that, or were you gonna just look into that?
Yeah.
What's,
IPP.
as far as that goes, I submitted an request for quotes to do a headworks analysis.
Okay,
I think the progress seems to be get the headworks analysis done, find out what your maximum allowable headworks limits are, and use those to implement your IPP.
okay.
So,
That goes back to, okay, now you're refreshing my memory. I think we spoke, Woodard and Carr was gonna do a, headworks analysis for us. I think me and you spoke, this was a long time ago. It was a paper study. And I thought me and you had the conversation of, it's not really gonna get us a whole lot of, like, it's gonna give us a lot of what we already know. Now, I was talking with Peter, and I think he said that the headworks analysis you gave us was another paper study.
Yeah, I
Thought we were
think-
gonna go a little deeper.
Well, the issue was, beyond, if you don't do it just simply as a paper study, which simply means use the data you have.
Correct.
Then it gets very expensive to do all this additional sample. I think the issue I had early on was I didn't trust the data,
Okay.
for lack of a better way to say it.
Yep.
You know, we knew that the samplers weren't flow proportioned, and we knew that some of the analysis was being done incorrectly. It's been a year now, so
Okay.
I think we have a good, solid year's worth of data that we, you know, understand, and we know it's changing, so I think, you know, time is getting, it's important now to really take a look at it, particularly as the loadings begin to change, we're seeing them change, to get our heads wrapped around exactly what,
And that's fine, and that's basically why I'm asking kind of, you know, where the changes are. You feel, you know, hey, no, this will give us 95% of what we need, you know, I'm more than happy with it. It's just, you know, I know we were initially talking about, we might have to do some extra legwork.
No, you're absolutely right. I had some concerns about what data we had and how accurate it was, and we discussed whether we needed to do manhole sampling.
Yep,
And really, I think at this point, I feel pretty good about the influent data we have. I think
Okay.
a good solid year's worth of it is gonna show kind of what our true loading is. We know it's flow proportion now. We know that you know, it's taken into account spikes and valleys. And unfortunately, with so much going on, particularly with, you know, the brewery and with other things, time is of the essence to try to really get a handle on what the plant can handle. And we had, you know, a violation back in November, October.
October
For ammonia, so I think there's some pressure to.
and you
really-
guys don't do that, right?
No, we wouldn't do
Okay.
that. No, we wouldn't do that.
And part of me, you know, is going back to, wouldn't Veolia, Woodard and Curran would still have a lot of our information, correct?
Well, we have all the data.
Okay.
They, as part of their transition, left all of the historical data in the database.
So whoever we choose or go forward with, you'll just ship them off the data and they'll,
Yeah, absolutely.
right, basically how.
Now,
it works.
they may come back with another recommendation. I think it's part of what Peter and I discussed. When we talked about how to lay out the RFP, we didn't want to be so prescriptive that we didn't take it give them an opportunity to make a recommendation.
Mhm.
They might feel differently than I do in terms of what's needed. So I think we need to listen to what they suggest as well.
Right, so part of the request for quote will have, it has, an optional task line that they can put optional tasks and price those accordingly, so we can look at that as well.
Okay.
For what we might not have included for scope of services. But the biggest thing the headworks analysis gets us is the maximum allowable headworks limit, which will tell you what the plant can
Right.
treat. We know what our discharge limits are, but that doesn't mean that that's what our plant can handle.
Correct.
So our plant might get to half of what the discharge limit is, and then it's just a pass-through, and we're violating.
Yeah.
So that's where there's a big disconnect, I think, in looking at what our discharge limits are, what we're currently sending, and you think, oh, we're only at 50%, so we have 50% left. But that's not the case, because if something gets triggered, we're not gonna go to 75%, we're gonna go to 120 or 130, and we're gonna violate. So I think that's, yes, it's a paper study, but it's gonna help identify some pertinent information for us moving forward and how to operate the plant. And two, hopefully, what improvements we can make to make it operate more efficiently.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I think it helps everybody and, you know, to the next, you know, people that are coming up, it helps put the IPP program in order, so then we can have clear guidelines with everybody, and it's gonna open this thing up and make it a lot more smoother and easier for
Yeah,
everybody.
I mean, simply put, like Peter was saying, we can't find out that we can't handle the load after the fact, because now we're in violation. We really have to get a handle on that. And we need to know that delta, you know.
Yep.
I mean, what's coming in and what we can take, and that's what this will do, hopefully.
Excellent. So do we already, oh, no, you're waiting for bids.
I asked for bids to come in, it's in the beginning of January, so hopefully we can review them on January 8th.
Okay.
So, see if
Sounds
it
good.
works.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Keith.
much.
You too.
Pete.
Thank you.
I'll just sit in the audience.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, please.
Come on up.
Introduce yourself. You guys all have the information in the packet, right? I sent you.
Yeah.
How's it going? Gabe, you take that big binder clip off, everything's stapled.
How are you guys?
Good evening.
Good. How are you?
Good.
If you guys could just introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so my name is Abed Hamid. I'm the environmental engineer for Carl Storz End Division here in Charlton.
This is,
I'm Tom Karen, I'm the facilities manager for Carl Storz.
Welcome.
thank you for coming.
So why don't you get us up to speed here, Pete?
Well, You guys got an original request from Carl Storts back in May to discharge neutralized mixed acid that they're currently shipping off-site, that they use to treat the fibers that they draw, to etch the
Glass
fibers.
etching operation.
So, at that time, you asked for more information, and this is, again, Mr. Hamid sent another request on October 26th that's in your packet that identifies what they're looking for. He gives the background, and we have a bunch of data from them. And John and I went and met with Abid and got a tour of the facility and saw how they do it. And it's an interesting process, and back in 2008, your agreement with Carl Storts when they ran the sewer line was for so many gallons a day for, I guess, sanitary sewer and so many gallons a day of.
Industrial.
Yeah,
Industrial process,
industrial,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So this is, they're looking to do about 110 gallons per day, which according to your agreement, I believe was up to 1,200 gallons a day of industrial sewage. And as John as I looked at it in their process to make sure that there was no potential for some type of hazardous material to possibly get into the system by mistake, everything seemed to be in line. After reviewing the data, the only concern that John really had was that the average lead concentration of what they're sending out right now is greater than 5 parts per million. And that pretty much makes it hazardous. But that's when it's in the 110 gallons concentration. If they were to discharge that 110 gallons into their 5,000 gallons per day, there's a sheet in here that shows you what that is.
This one?
Okay.
So, I mean, if you guys look through there,
Yeah, and I believe the last time we talked, we weren't gonna do the nanosides or,
the biocides.
Yeah, so that was on
Yeah.
the request, the biocide.
Yep.
And,
I think, and you
we
said it
took
was
that-
only like 10 gallons a
Right.
month, week or whatever, it was very
Yeah.
limited, right?
So we took that off the
Yeah,
request and just.
they withdrew the biocide application,
Yep.
so now it's just straight for the it's a straight request for the neutralized mixed acids of approximately 110 gallons per month, per week.
Per day.
Per day?
Yeah, up to 110 per day.
So, again, the main concern that came up, I guess, for John, after reviewing everything that was done, was that average concentration of lead that we have from the sampling data of what they took from their 55-gallon drums of the neutralized mixed acid.
How far over the 5 parts? Or did it-
5 parts per million the average is 8.60.
Okay.
But that's when it's in.
Concentrate, so,
in
no, but it's
original
not like it's
concentration.
400 and it's, you know, it's.
No.
No, but I think we have to be careful, to make sure, because it now is a hazardous waste,
Mhm.
I think we need to just do a little research on the regulations, which, you're not technically allowed to dilute a hazard
Mhm.
in a bunch of water and then consider it not hazardous. We just gotta be careful about researching that to make sure that we can, I'm no expert, I wanna make sure that we close that loop, because it is now technically a hazardous waste as it's defined by EPA. We just need to make sure, you guys may be able to speak to it even better than I can, but in terms of diluting a hazardous waste to a lower concentration intentionally, might represent a problem.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is some type of treatment. So, diluting it to, basically avoid pollution. What we're asking is, discharging it after adjusting the pH and just putting it in our pump chamber. So we're not really diluting the 110 gallons to more water and then discharging that. We're just putting it straight to our pump chamber, which, with the effects of mixing and everything, goes down to 0.13 milligrams per liter, which is below the 5.
But I think what John's getting at is, because of the way the concentration is labeled out of the gate, like the way it's discharging, even though it's not it's discharging your facility at an X rate,
Right.
it's gonna be it's gonna be received at our plant at a much better rate through the dilution. But I think what John was afraid of is it listed as, hazardous material, coming out of your plant. So I think,
Well, we
right,
ship.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not an expert about IPP program. I can get an answer, I just don't have it tonight, but I think we just need to make sure that you're not in violation of doing anything by taking a hazardous concentration and then diluting it somehow after it's been captured in order to get below the limit of the discharge. I know, you just need to close that loop, I think.
Or it might be okay, we don't know either, yeah.
Again, I'm not here to say it is or isn't at this point, I think we just need to close that loop and make sure.
Okay. So, any comments and stuff? Any questions? Do you see any major hiccups with this, John?
No, like Peter said, we toured the facility, our concern going in was accidental release, how well is it being handled and managed, and we found the operation to be relatively robust and secure. There was no direct discharge into the sewer, it was into a drum. So if they did have a problem, they had containment, we would be able to go directly in. So if they did have an issue, they'd have the ability to prevent accidental discharge. That's what I was most concerned about. And again, looking at the data, the lead just seemed to be the concern. I raised to Peter my concern that it's being shipped out as non-hazardous waste in its current form, but yet the lead is above the hazardous RCRA level. So I had a question about, is that correct? Because even though it's not being diluted now, it's being shipped out as non-hazardous. Is that true? Is that accurate? Is it just?
Yeah, so it sounds like just a little clarification and,
And if there's a way to eliminate the lead or get the lead below the 5, that's a non-issue altogether. I'm not sure where the lead's coming from, probably over the glass.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of the operation. There's a little bit of etched glass from the leaded glass that we use for optical fiber. So it's a little bit,
Yeah.
micro, meters or micro nanometers, a little bit of glass, but that ends up.
So when it gets shipped out to your disposer, he doesn't classify it as hazardous waste, but it's over the 5, or am I missing how that works?
Well, I think they do testing for it, but yeah, it is classified as non-hazardous. So
Even though it's above the 5?
I'm not sure with how their operation is, but it is shipped as non-hazardous
okay.
waste.
Do you have information you wanna? Is that-
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Approach, I do have a couple packets for. So one of them is a note from Woodard and Kern,
Okay.
or a memo that was,
Thank you.
that one for each. That dates back to 2010. There was a study made, based on all the discharge that was to be discharged, then saying that, and I highlighted some of what I'm going to talk about. So basically saying that flow from this facility is only a small portion of the total flow at the Charlton wastewater treatment facility. And then below, commenting on the heavy metals, saying it would appear that the addition of these flows would not result in an excursion of the heavy metals. I've also added a letter from the Water Sewer Commission saying that, accepting the flows of 1,260 gallons per day of industrial waste charge. And then I've also added industrial sewer connection certification, which we got back in, I believe, 2011.
So, and just to kind of throw this out there for discussion, which, possible feedback from the 4 of us up here. I'm basically inclined to move forward with this. I think we talked about it with the last time. However, it's just, I guess my only caveat would be, you heard us discussing about building an IPB program.
Right.
Okay, that's, so we can evaluate and basically know where our plan is. The only thing, my concern as you ask, is that, depending on where that program comes into play, you guys, might have to conform to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just, and we build up some redundancy. So if John comes back and says, hey, anything over 5 we can't take, you guys gotta put it in the barrel, you know what I mean, like,
Right.
there might be some procedures and stuff in place, and I'm just talking in thought so we can get a good discussion going, but that's kinda where my general, mind frame is basically, if it comes back that it's detrimental to our plant, we might have to shut you off. If we can take it, you know, you guys are a great contributor to the system, and as long as it's great, you know, good for everybody, that's my general approach. Any,
I think if you're gonna consider doing that, you need to, I guess, change their sampling
yep,
frequency and what they're sampling for. I put a chart on the last page of what I gave you guys. Currently, they sample quarterly, and it's only for metals.
okay,
I think if...
We've added BOD too in the past couple.
Right, but not that we've been getting. I asked you for it, and I got it, but Nick wasn't sending us to, Nick was not sending that to us
Oh, okay.
on his own.
All right.
So, the last BOD information I could find before I got the last 2 quarters was back in 2012, and their average BOD at that time of the 5 samples was 840. So I think with what we have going on, and, I mean, we already have the ability to surcharge that in our bylaws. I think if we can change the frequency and what they're sampling for, so it's consistent with what we're requiring Treehouse to do, and the same things kind of fall into place with them, Treehouse and the MTA. And then we do the headworks analysis and get everything else in the line. And if we have to make further changes after that, we can do it then. But if you're gonna consider having them discharge, approving the discharge of their neutralized mixed acids now, I think we need to change the frequency of the testing to weekly to make sure that they're, again, I know it's 110 gallons a day going into 5,000, so it's probably, you're not even gonna see it. But if we could go to at least a weekly for the first 2 to 3 months, and then add in BOD, TSS, and ammonia, so it's consistent with everyone else that we're testing, and we start that process now moving forward, I think it'll be beneficial.
is that, isn't that test pretty costly? Is that a
The BOD?
toxic, no, BOD is easy. Is that a toxicity test?
Which one?
Well,
The metals?
yeah,
They're already doing the metals.
No, we have
Okay.
been since we connected it back in 2008.
Okay.
It's, when they first connected back in 2011 or
We did it every
2012,
month.
they were doing,
Okay.
they started it monthly, and they were doing BOD and metals.
Mm-hmm.
And then they requested the commission to go to quarterly, and they went to quarterly metals only.
okay,
And that's what they've been doing since 2011 or 2012.
Mm-hmm.
But the data for BOD seems that it's over the surchargeable limit, which is something that we should be addressing. So if we're gonna do that.
Yeah, and again, in the past 2 BOD results that I sent you, I think the average was 600 or 500 something. But again, I mean, what we're trying, I guess, to show with all this is you guys will see minimal impact downstream, and you know, if you see that, you know, it's needed to increase the frequency of testing, we'd be more than happy to oblige with that as well, for BOD or, you know, metals or anything of that sort.
In my mind, to increase the frequency of testing immediately would be to just make sure the metals aren't, nothing funny happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as far as BOD goes, I think the more you sample, the better the averages you're gonna get, which would be better off for you. So if we sample one day and it's at 1,000 versus sampling every week and keeping that average a little bit low and more accurate, you won't get a higher spike, because at your gallons per day, if you're at 500 to 600 of BOD, it's quite a bit of a, it's not quite, it's a decent sized surcharge when you figure out what the pounds are and the charge per pound. So, I just think it's, holistically, we need to look at the whole thing and put everything together so that we're in a good place moving forward. And I just think it just set it up so we're ready to go.
yeah, no, I agree with that.
Pretty consistent.
Definitely, again, you're doing it for Treehouse now, you're doing it for, most of it for the MTA now, but
So basically, I think, just so we're all kind of clear, is it's gonna kind of be a temporary go-ahead until this IPP program is built, and then we'll solidify a proper program, you know what I mean, and then go from there. Right, with that, is
I
that
think-
kind of what you're thinking?
yes, and it's important to note John's concern that if the concentration of that neutralized mixed acid is over 5 parts per million for lead, can they even discharge it
Yep.
into the system? I mean, that's the key point we have to get over right now. The rest of it can fall into place. But I think that's the hurdle that, again, from my 2 meetings and John going there once, the one thing that came out was that average of 8.6 parts per million, and anything over 5 is considered hazardous based on the EPA.
So, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we grant temporary access for Karl Storz to discharge their industrial wastewater, deeming that it's non-hazardous. So you guys figure out whatever the limits are.
Yeah, I'll do a little more research, I'll have our IPP people.
Yeah. I mean, is that fair?
Find the right.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, on a temporary basis, and we'll just,
How temporary? How often do you want them to do testing?
so Peter's gonna draft a temporary program. So this is basically, so he doesn't have to come back to this board, that we allow it. You guys figure out a program that, you know, we all understand that, I think you're gonna be under the limits. As long as everything's safe and under the limits, develop the program, go ahead, and you guys just know in the back of your mind, if something happens, we do have the right, you know, to shut this off, and you might have to go to barrels. So just keep that in the back of your mind, you know, our plans first, we love you and all, but.
And we have the infrastructure for it, we can turn that off, back and on.
Okay, so it's not a big deal for you guys
We're
to-
not gonna get rid of our waste haul or anything
Okay.
like that, it's just for that stream.
John, does that,
Yeah, I can, within a short period of time, I can get back to Peter what our official position as far as being able to dilute the lead down into his waste stream at a lower level, if that's permissible or not. I don't wanna say today that I know what that answer is, but I will get that answer to Peter in short order, in a matter of a couple of weeks.
It's gonna depend where it's sampled, right? So if it's sampled, if it's discharged and we sample in their tank,
Which is where we currently sample from.
it shouldn't be an issue.
Then it
It will
won't
never
show.
show up as hazardous.
So, can we, I'm not seconding the motion, I'm just saying, can we table it, keep it status quo until the next meeting? Do you think that's enough time for you?
what is it gonna change? What's that?
It is, I'm sorry, I thought Jen was asking me, yeah, it is for me, yeah, by, within a couple of weeks, I'll have my IPP person tell me whether or not what they're intending to do with the lead is acceptable or not, from our understanding of the
What that-
resolution.
What that'll change is it'll allow us to answer that question. It'll allow me to present the testing frequency and program and have everything in place for you to make like a final approval instead of temporary.
Okay. Would you guys be okay with that, a couple more weeks? And then basically what would basically you wouldn't have to come back. You know, we could just talk amongst ourselves and, you know, Peter can call you or draft you up a letter if everything goes forward.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to get in touch anyway, so we can finalize a couple of things and get everything ready to go. I'll present it we're meeting on the 8th, so it's only, a few weeks away.
I just want to safeguard everyone.
It's fine.
And that way there, what gets approved is it's black and white, and it's more clear than kind of a temporary approval with,
So I think you guys, having dealt with us for as long as you have, we want to be above the boards.
Yeah.
I think that, that safeguard is appropriate. If we wait till the 8th and we get that answer and we move forward from there, I think that's in everybody's best interest.
Sounds good to me.
I appreciate your patience. I know you guys have been waiting a long time for this.
We've
and-
waited a few months.
I know you have, and again, thank you for that, and
The only thing
We're
I would
almost
add
there.
with, the size and breadth of the stores, that, if you have certain information or understanding of the regulations regarding your waste, feel free to ship them on as well.
Okay.
Again, I'm curious as to how, it's above the threshold of 5 and yet it's non-classified, so there's gotta be a reason for that.
Yeah.
I don't know, so if
Yeah.
you have that, I'd like to know.
I don't have it from the top of my head, but I'll
Yeah.
definitely reach out to our waste hauler and ask them.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Happy holidays to
You
everybody.
too.
Same
Thank
to
you.
Appreciate it. Yes. Yes, thank you, John.
Yep.
Appreciate you staying. Okay, definitely.
Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thanks, buddy.
Looking forward to the first year.
Hey, how long are we thinking on that, realistically, once we get that headwork study, how long would that take? Probably a month?
Yeah, I would think probably, and it's probably an order of weeks, you know, depending on.
Now, would
how
you
busy-
you guys have blanket IPP programs?
Yeah, oh yeah, Peter and I had a meeting, with our regional IPP person about a month ago, maybe, Peter?
Yeah.
And she offered to help sit down with Peter and work through what it would look like. I mean, basically what happens is you're gonna get, an allocation. You've got this much room for BOD, TSS, whatever.
Mhm.
And then you can allocate it according to whoever
Correct.
needs it. But you'll know what your limits are, what you can allocate, and whatever, and not allow people to go over it without having to put in some sort of treatment. 'Cause
Yeah.
right now, you're allocating amounts that
Right.
technically you may not be able to take, particularly on the BOD side, and pneumonia and things like that.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, but Veolia, like I said, we had a meeting with Peter, and there's EPA puts out some real basic framework for how to implement an IPP program.
So basically, long and short is it can get done relatively quickly.
Once we get the information from the headworks analysis, yes, it will be sitting down and putting in the figures and figuring out where our internal limits are, not our EPA limits are.
Right, I mean, the beauty of it is because you're not required to have one, you can kind of set it up the way you want it.
Correct.
If we get to the point where they make us have one, well, then it's gonna be the way they want it to be set up. So you give away that flexibility, if you will.
Can I ask you a question? You're in the business. Sorry to take a couple minutes. Do you classify like tree houses as an industrial wastewater?
Unfortunately, breweries are not classified by EPA does all the
Yeah.
classifications, and breweries are not classified as,
See, that's what I was kind of under the impression of, like,
But that
what we just heard
But
from.
an IPP does not specify, it's also commercial, it's,
right, what that
Correct.
means is if they were classified, if they were standard industrial users, there would be certain rules and regulations they would have to follow. But because they're not classified, they don't have to, but that doesn't mean you as the owner doesn't have the right to impose
Absolutely,
what,
absolutely. What I'm just somewhat afraid of is, you take something like a tree house and, I don't want to classify them as the same as, discharge waste off a CNC machine. You know what I mean, at another,
No.
you know what I mean, that's all. I
Yeah,
just,
you wouldn't, really, what's gonna happen, at the end of the day is you're gonna have a volume of space
yep,
to allocate to whomever wants that space. And you're gonna say, okay, I can give you 50%, I can give you 10%, or they'll ask, give me this, and you'll say, okay, I've got enough to allocate that amount. And then every year, you could reallocate that if you want,
yep.
as things change, as new industries come in. But now you've got the information to be able to cut the pie up how you need to.
And that'll give us the framework to make people pre-treat if they need to, or vice
Yes.
versa,
Right, in
or,
order for them to continue to discharge, because you don't have any more allocation to give them, they have to reduce. And then
Okay.
you make everybody reduce.
Yep.
Or pay the surcharge.
okay. Excellent,
Alright.
thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, be good, John. Sorry about that. So,
Mr. Pucci's here, he owns the property at 221 Sturbridge Road, which is right adjacent to the entrance to Juniper Hills, Mayberry Lane.
okay,
You have a copy of his site plan in front of you. What I asked him for was a copy of the utilities plan as part of his site plan approval, which will show you where the water connection is. And then also a copy of his septic plan, which shows you the Title V gallons per day usage. So, Mr. Pucci came to ask me to sign off on his building permit. And I didn't feel comfortable doing so because I wasn't sure of the process the board has taken in the past. I'm sure there's plenty of water available there, that's not the question, but the question comes into play is there was no betterment down here. And is there a privilege fee that's gonna be assessed? And if so, I didn't wanna sign a building permit and then just have that get missed, or have, when he comes back for me to sign off on the occupancy permit, and we don't have that stuff ironed out. I just figured Mr. Pucci's kind enough to come in front of us tonight to talk about those things, and the site plan's pretty straightforward. He has either a 6 or a 4-inch line for fire suppression dedicated based on what Southbridge is gonna require.
So there is no fire suppression.
No, that's for the sprinkler system that'll be in the building.
What's that?
The 4 or 6-inch line that he's talking about will be for the sprinkler system that will be in the building.
No, but I don't think we allow fire suppression.
Yes, we do. Mr. Pucci's talked to Southbridge.
Okay.
And luckily, he's a fire protection engineer, so he knows.
Okay.
He-
I
he-
just thought
He's
we
done a
were-
flow test, and he's sized the system adequately so that what there is available in that line for flow is capable of providing
Okay.
fire protection to that building.
Okay.
So I think that the reason why fire protection was always kind of hit or miss before was because nobody ever did the studies to know what the fire flow in the line was.
Okay.
And depending on the size of the building, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, the size of the building dictates how much fire flow you need. So this isn't a 100,000 square foot building where you need 1,000 gallon a minute flow out of the hydrant, so that's why I believe Mr. Pucci's talked to Southbridge already.
So
And
where's Mayberry Lane? Which one is this?
across from, on Route 20 heading west to Sturbridge on the left. Across from where, is it just vacant land across from you right now?
Green Boys bought
The
the land
Green
and
Boys,
cleared it,
but-
but haven't done anything with it yet.
Who is it?
Green Boys.
Landscaping.
Oh, yes, yes,
He's
yes.
Across on the other side of Route 20.
So you're on the same side as Juniper Hills?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we bought-
so
we
this
bought
may,
the property from, is it, Lussier, Norm Lussier used to own
Okay.
Juniper Hills. and
so is Mayberry Lane that Juniper Hills Road?
Yes.
Okay,
It's,
all right.
it's
So-
one of them, it's the main one. And then
Yes.
there's another one that.
There's another one back, okay, all right,
So
sorry.
that's still an 8-inch line coming up on Route 20 then.
Yep.
It's an 8-inch line, and they ran an 8-inch line down Mayberry
Then it
Lane as well.
switches to a 4-inch line.
After that.
After
This is
Mayberry
still-
Line
This
heading
is
west,
still
yes.
at the 8-inch
Yes.
portion, okay.
Yes, this building will be tied into the 8-inch line on Mayberry Lane. And Mr. Pucci sized it, so if, again, based on preliminary discussion with Southbridge, a 4-inch dedicated fire service line is adequate, and a 2-inch copper domestic water service is there as well. It's, what is that, about 60 feet of water line to run?
I think so, yeah.
It doesn't look that far, and it's a
I can
straight
scale it if
shot,
it's
so.
important to you.
Again, the bigger question is what's gonna happen with the privilege fee, and is it, Title V numbers are 1,043 gallons per day usage, so.
And just so that you know, that 1,043, that includes, there's 500 gallons per day for the, what we're calling the initial build-out, what we're going for the building permit for now. And then we got, conditional planning board approval that we could put an addition on the building in the future if we wanted to, and we're sizing the septic for that increased demand. But the intent is not to use that, and if we did choose to tap into that extra capacity, we would have to come for another
Yep.
building permit to be able to build that.
So the two caveats with that, because just to give you, so you know, if you lock it in now, you kind of basically got it. If you just take the 500, and then let's say you come back in 5 years, 10 years, we can't guarantee it may or may not be there,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I don't even,
Right.
you'll have to
Oh.
educate me on the privilege fee part of it, because this is our first building that we're gonna be building in town, so I don't know, that's like it goes on your taxes or something like that, and gets added to your taxes, or how does that work?
It's not a betterment, but it's similar to it. So what it does is it allows us to charge for upgrade fees and stuff like that for down the plant for future growth. But it's very similar. I believe it goes right through the tax collector, right?
In the past, the commission has allowed the privilege fee to be based on a 20-year payback, depending on what the customer wants. So you can pay it off at once, you can pay, whatever the privilege fee to be assessed is, you can pay off up front, or you can
Gotcha.
finance it 2, 5, or 10 years, I think is what you guys have done in the past. There's some questions from the town accountant if we have the authority to finance the privilege fee over time, but, Again, for water, there has not been any privilege fees assessed to this time, at this time. I
We're in the
believe.
process of kind of implementing them. It's been voted on, it was voted on, I think, last year, right? But
It
we
was-
haven't set a dollar
I sent
number
that
to it.
email, yeah, there's gonna be quite a bit of discussion, I think, that you guys are gonna have to have as a board moving forward on how you're gonna do that. And again, I don't think, signing the building permit now, so you can get going, I don't think we need to stop that from happening. But what I didn't wanna do was sign the building permit, have you go, and then you come for an occupancy permit, and I tell you, oh, by the way, you have to come in front of the board, and you might have a $10,000 privilege fee.
Because
So-
right now, you will have, a Southbridge connection fee, that, I think, what is it, $2,000 for the
Depends on
2-inch?
A lot more than that for the fire line.
Well, then the fire line would be, what, 6,000 or something
Depending
like
on the
that?
size, yeah.
Yeah, depending on the size. So,
Which kills me, because I'm all for like future sizing it 6 inch in case somebody else buys the building down the line, but they don't charge you based on the size of the backflow preventer, they charge you based on the size of the tap. So if all we need is 4 inch, I'm kinda like,
yeah,
the
And
new
that's
guy,
the
the new
the
guy
monthly
can dig
fee
up,
as well.
dig it up and put a new one
Yep.
in if that's what it comes down to, but.
Okay, so, again, my reason for bringing this forward is so that Mr. Pucci was aware, and you guys have this on your radar, so if you give me approval to sign the building permit, I will, he can start moving forward, knowing that this is gonna have to get discussed and worked out before the occupancy permit gets signed.
yep.
So it's just not a surprise to him.
I mean, that's, again, you guys, it sounds like you guys are, it's a new thing for you, so.
Yes.
If I had built another building in town or something and didn't get assessed that, and then came for the occupancy permit, then I would be pissed, because you didn't tell me up front, kind of deal.
Correct, so that, I mean, there's other people looking to renovate existing buildings that they wanna connect, or they want to expand, and I'm kinda doing the same thing with them as far as water goes, is you need to come in front of the commission. Yes, it's straightforward, the connection's not a problem, the water's there, but there's gonna be a fee that, again, I haven't talked to the commission about, and it's not written down and set in stone for me to give to them to explain it to them, so.
I'm guessing the long and short of it is, and this isn't concrete, but you're probably not gonna get some privilege fee for water with us at this moment, because if you get in before, you know what I mean, you can't kind of retroactive, it's either, just open talking here, it's one or the other, like, we either implement it on this day, and that's what it is going forward, or,
Again,
Right, I don't understand.
you've had talks with Upland Farms about privilege fees.
Yeah.
That's in the minutes, so it's not, the discussions have been there, it's just, we need to get together and kind of figure out what the roadmap is for these, and how we're gonna implement them and charge them, and what the fee will be, so.
well, this is what I'm kind of getting at, it's basically, when do you plan on starting construction?
We'll open this spring. I mean,
Okay.
I'm supposed to have the building permit in hand tomorrow, once, assuming that you guys sign this tonight, so.
Do you follow where I'm going? Like, it's kind of pre-existing, you know what I mean? You can't,
I
I'm not
don't-
saying it's not, I'm just,
I
it's my 2 cents. Or we make it,
I think this falls under the whole reason for a privilege fee, and that's so that new connections can give you the money for capital improvements for your existing infrastructure that they didn't pay towards in the beginning.
correct, I,
So we just because it's been discussed, but it's not in place yet, I don't think that, we shouldn't hold off and not assess this property a privilege fee.
okay.
And I think we should, kind of.
You're kind of a guinea pig in a
That's
big
great.
broader, I'm
I mean,
sorry,
construction's not gonna start till spring, we'll definitely have something ready for you by then. But again, to sign the initial building permit's not an issue, it's just as long as he's aware that that fee is coming down the road, and that'll be taken care of before the occupancy permit gets signed. So, again, it'll,
Do you have, I mean, have you guys, somebody threw out $10,000, but do you have a sense for, I mean, what's it based on, so that if I do have to plan, like,
So, basically, the reason why we're even talking about this is we're also simultaneous parallel, possibly creating our own consecutive water system. So, in order to fund that, we need to, take those monies, like the connection fee that Southbridge take. So, ideally, let's say it happens next summer. You know what I mean? That connection fee would come to this department to fund it. You know, you can't have a department without any kinds of funds or revenues and stuff.
But that would come, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be in lieu of what you pay to Southbridge, right? In
Well,
theory?
so this is the thing, you might have one or the other, you might have both, like, this is what, us as a board, and this is, you know, above your situation, this is what we're all trying to map out and figure out now.
I guess what I'm saying is that, and maybe this is a discussion for later, once you guys iron out what you're gonna do, but it doesn't seem, and I'm just saying, you're gonna pay one town or the other for the connection fee, right? Is it separate? Is there such thing as a connection fee and a betterment fee in some municipalities?
Yes, a connection fee is separate from a betterment
Okay.
or a privilege
Yes.
fee. So if we were to assess you a privilege fee, and you're still gonna have to pay a tie-in fee.
Okay,
That connection fee is still there, it's separate. But I guess the privilege fee, from what I've seen from discussion, was based at $2,200, and I'm not sure how they described it, if it was per building or what, but per betterment. So, and again, that's why your flow is important, the gallons per day is important, because that's how you differentiate from one EDU or two EDUs with sewer. Now, water was done a little bit differently as far as the betterment process goes, correct? They used the FAR method, from what I could tell from watching the minutes, from watching the video, and this was back in 2010, I believe.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So-
We started talking about it, then it kinda just, it slipped off. And basically, because what we've been doing is just, there's no privilege fee, it's just you pay the connection fees to Southbridge, you pay Southbridge the rate, and, you know, life goes on. I'm guessing that's probably where you're gonna end up.
and if not, I mean, regardless, whatever you guys decide, I mean, it's not like my say matters, so whatever you come back to us, I appreciate that you let me know ahead of time. I guess I was just curious, if you had a sense for the amount that it would be, just so I can throw that in my budget spreadsheet and, you know, even if it doesn't, it'd be great if it doesn't get charged, but if
Yeah.
it does, then we're not blindsided by it, and if you don't have that, you don't have that, I'm still not, you know,
Based on the initial motion that was made, if they stay with that dollar figure, it probably would be $5,000 to $6,000 for a privilege fee.
and you just are not sure if that's the same whether you have a fire line and a water line, or
That's per property, that,
per property?
yeah, the fire line doesn't matter for a privilege fee. It just, the privilege fee is your access to the water line that was installed. That because you didn't get a betterment, that you didn't pay for it in the beginning.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's kind of a reimbursement for future capital. Does that make sense?
Yep. And after 10 years, if you guys don't use it, it gets returned to me with interest and everything.
No.
In your dreams.
So again, so if the board doesn't have any major concerns, and they're okay with that, again, I can sign the building permit, and, we'll just make sure that this is ironed out before the occupancy permit gets signed.
Yep. Because what's your initial? You going for just the first building with the 500 gallons per day?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that's what I was getting at. If there's, like, let's say there's a 1,000 gallon per minute, or gallon per day threshold on the betterment, then I'm probably gonna say, you know what, just assess us for the current usage, because I gotta come back before you guys anyway for the building. And
Yeah.
honestly, we're putting so much money into infrastructure between the septic and the stormwater management and everything else we're doing in this building for maybes, what-ifs down the line, that
Yeah.
we gotta draw the line somewhere. Like,
Yeah. And I think too, I know gymnastics is a very low limit. Just double check with your engineers what would kick back if the uses change. You know, if it went to a retail or this or that.
No, we did, and that's all been designed in there. In fact, if you look at the septic plan, like, they factored in the usage for the, what is it, like manufacturing or something, like for the addition in case we had a tenant that you had different
Yeah.
usage. I'm not saying that there's not some uses that
Yeah.
could go in there that might have an issue, but.
Well, you get a restaurant in here and it's gonna change,
And it's not gonna be a restaurant, I mean, it's being designed.
but you know what I'm saying, it's.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and maybe, at that point, you maybe gotta do something, but I mean, ideal, this building, it's a open span steel metal building, other
Yep.
than my wife's business, which needs to have no columns. The most suitable tenant for this is somebody that wants to do like rack storage or something.
Yep, yep.
That's not a restaurant, like,
Yeah.
And 24-foot ceilings, I mean, it's a waste.
And basically, the only reason why I'm saying is I just don't wanna have to see you, you know, before we give you an occupancy, come back and say, hey, whoa, you know, you only got 500 gallons a day and the usage is you know what I'm saying, it's totally different and, you know.
And the thing is, if there's no betterment, or if it doesn't affect the betterment between the 500 and the, I think it's 1043 that's on the plan, then I'd say, look, just write it, can we write it up as 1043? That's really what we want here.
Correct.
If not, if it's gonna
Yep.
say, well, this is no dollars and this is $6,000, and then you can come back and pay it later if you wanna connect, and oh, by the way, it might be higher, well, I'm guessing, especially at that point in the project, we're probably gonna say, just put it through for what we're gonna use it for now.
Yep. And that's what I would recommend, just, you know, do it, lock yourself in, be done, and, you know, I can't make a business decision for you, but, you know, just, things don't go down,
Understood.
sadly, you know. But, yeah, I'd say, make a motion to go ahead and, sign that building permit.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gabe made the motion.
I can't second
sorry.
my second.
You can't second your second?
Jen second.
As long as you have the knowledge that
Something.
Take a vote.
All those in favor, aye.
I,
Aye.
Do you want me to sign that tonight?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I don't have
Yep.
to come see it tomorrow.
thank you so much for coming in.
No, thank you.
And basically, you'll just ask how much you want, and it's gonna get privileged. You know what I'm saying? You want 200, you pay for 200, and if you go over, you're gonna get surcharged. If you want 1,000, you know what I'm saying? So it's basically, when it comes down to it before the occupancy, we'll just iron out what you want and go from there.
And that's just something where, at that point, do I come before the board again, or I just come see you and you say, here's the rules on a piece of paper and?
Yeah, hopefully everything will be ironed out by then, and you'll be able to tell it for an extra 400 gallons per day, it's gonna cost you this much as a privilege fee to expand that.
Okay.
But, well, I mean, like Gabe said, you're also gonna make sure that your septic is designed to handle that extra excess.
No, and it is, that's why it's being designed for more now, even though
Right.
we probably are not.
As far as the water line goes, yes, so you're gonna have, your privilege fee is gonna be based on 500 gallons per day. If the use changes, if you add on and it increases, you're gonna have to come back, and if the privilege fee changes, you'll have to pay what the new one is. If it's the same, then it'll be based on the same calculation.
Got it.
And hopefully we'll get that ironed out in the next 4 to 6 weeks, so.
Yeah, we won't be, if you're talking about the occupancy, it won't be enforced.
No, I know, but I think
Yeah.
we'll at least have more direction for you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Have
you
a Merry
very much.
Christmas,
Thank
Bill.
you, have a good Christmas.
Thank you.
Okay. There's a lot of moving parts to that one. Not his, but this water betterment thing,
Yes.
or privilege fee. All right, where'd my agenda go? Okay. Now, I believe, was he over 1,000?
Yes, combined with the building that's not being built, he was,
Cause you can approve up to 1,000, right?
for sewer. That's not,
Okay.
it's not written in
Yeah,
the
no, I-
bylaws, but,
Yeah.
so sewer and water are different.
Yeah.
And again, there's not much, water is so new, I just wanted to bring it in front of you guys, cause I don't want anybody to have any surprises coming down the road and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, everyone looks back and says, well, how come this happened, so.
Yep. Okay. All right. Old business?
So we,
Sewer meter rules?
yeah, we talked about the sewer meter rules and regulations. I incorporated the changes we discussed at the last meeting and sent you that redlined version on email. And what you have in front of you is a clean version with all the changes that was discussed. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys, if you don't see any other changes to be made, we hopefully can approve this, and I'll get it over to Lisa Westwell to attach it to our webpage so that what's up there is accurate and reflects what we just approved with the correct rates and everything else.
Okay. Make a motion to, approve the changes? Get a second?
I second.
Okay. You wanna take a minute, Paul?
No, I kinda remember 'em
I mean, we kinda went through
Weeks
most
ago,
of them
and
the
I
last
didn't,
time. Yeah.
I didn't have any problems with any changes we made, so.
And these are regulations, so we can change them anytime, or,
Yeah.
you know, this
Right.
isn't, this is pretty, you know, so, okay. Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay, your assistant?
Yes, so last week, Jen, Rob, Paul, myself, and Jessica interviewed 4 of the top candidates. Prior to that, Jessica and myself interviewed 7 of the 13. So after interviewing those 4, it was voted to offer the position to Susan Guerin from town. Since then, Jessica from HR has been talking to her. She has accepted the position. I believe the query and the reference checks have been done. She accepted the rate of $19 per hour, which was the lower rate advertised.
Mm-hmm.
And she's all set to start January 2nd.
Okay.
So, if,
I'm gonna make a motion to accept, go back to her name, sorry. Make a motion to accept, Susan R. Guerin, as the new, Water and Sewer Administrative Assistant.
Second.
here's her employee action form that talks about her pay rate and everything and her
Okay.
start date, so.
Providing she clears,
Yeah.
obviously, human resources,
Yeah,
which she
sure.
already has.
So if your motion just reflects that employee, what's that called? What's the heading on that?
Personal action,
Yeah, the employee, if you just wanna reference that employee action form in your motion, that'd be great.
alright, so.
And then I'll just sign that and she'll be good to go.
Alright, so cross that out. I'd like to make a motion that we hire Susan R. Guerin in conjunction with the personal action required approval of the town administrator and board of selectmen form,
Yeah, that's all.
and, for the information listed,
Yeah, that's good.
and a start date to be determined by our superintendent and,
January 2nd, it's on there.
yeah, so.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
I kinda thought we did that last week, but
Well, I mean,
it
this,
wasn't, you know, there was a quorum here, so.
this solidifies the
Whatever.
salary. So this is the
Yeah.
next step to solidify the salary, because you guys didn't mention that in the motion, so.
Right, and we had to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
and this comes from
the
Robin,
query
right?
test and
that
stuff
comes
like
from
that.
Jessica.
Oh, Jessica, yeah.
This is updated with the query done
Yeah,
and stuff,
so this is the employee action form that the department has to sign off on, so if you
Okay.
if that gets referenced in the motion with the salary to start and the start date, that's great.
Okay.
And it just kinda reiterates what you guys voted last week.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Grab that back.
Welcome aboard.
We need to sign it?
I did.
Okay.
No, it's just his department head.
Hmm,
Unless
guess
you
that's
wanna
you.
sign it.
Nothing permanent.
Okay, St.
Nor do I
Mary's
wanna
Way.
be.
So, ExxonMobil's done with this water line extension for the season. If you see the email that I copied you guys on, it's all installed, backfilled, temporarily trenched. They're planning on coming back in the spring to do the pressure test and everything else needed that's associated with it, so. Just wanted to kind of put this in here so you guys had this for information and, see if there was anything else that needed to be done, but
So they're not activating it?
no, not at this time. No,
Okay.
the insertion valve was installed, the connection's made on Stafford Street. I believe that the valve's closed, the line's dry. It's all installed, it has not been pressure tested.
So the property on the hill is not connected off of
No.
that yet?
No.
Okay. So what are they gonna do, disconnect and then reconnect?
They
or-
never, my understanding is they were never connected. I think Alex mentioned that 2-inch connection previously also. And they said that, from what I can gather, that was never connected to the line in Stafford Street.
Say that again? So that house isn't connected to
It's
town?
on the well.
on
It's
the
not
well.
connected to the town water
Okay,
at this time.
Oh, that's my, yeah, I totally agree. It's never been connected,
okay.
and, 'cause we were talking that, you know, we had gone through different things, copper, 2-inch copper and stuff, and then we ended with the 4-inch stuck the line. And, we were gonna return it to Timber Valley, which we don't have to
Yes.
now, and, so it's my understanding that, and when the new, the original house, I think, is gonna be 2-inch, and the other 4 connections would be gonna be 1-inch. That was my understanding.
I have to look at the plan,
But-
possibly.
Now it's 4-inch and they're all 1-inch.
Yeah, well, I still think the original was going to two, but
Yeah.
whatever, the rest of them one. But either way, I was never, my understanding that anything was ever connected other than to their own well.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there was something with the levels of that plume over there. Some of the I forget if it's shallow or deep or whatever, but some of them weren't affected.
Oh.
You know, for whatever layers, you know, so maybe he's got a shallow one or a deep, I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, but, okay. Sounds good.
Great.
All right, go ahead, Pete.
All right, so last week I met with Town Administrator and Aquarian Water to start about discussing supplying water to the East Charlton Water Line extension. Very preliminary, good first meeting. We're gonna be meeting again in January to take the next step and identify really what needs to be done to make sure we can make that happen.
Okay. Do they have water?
They do. I talked to Chris McClure to try and identify what our demand will be.
Okay.
That was their first question, is what's your demand gonna be? And because this line is only gonna be active to Richardson's Corner Road, I don't believe the demand will be that high. So,
Does Oxford have the infrastructure to carry the water to our town?
well, that's what the grant gives us. We got that $2.5 million grant to extend our water line down Route 20 to connect to theirs at the end, by the industrial park where Jevic is.
That's in Charlton. I'm concerned that Oxford
Yes.
has large enough piping
Yes.
capacity to.
Because,
come
you know,
this way.
by the old NEP, the North End Pub there,
Yeah, yeah.
they just they just redid that, because that was, I
Oh, did
think,
they, for the Chinese restaurant or?
well, they did that whole stretch, and I believe that was a big, they weren't sure, they did water and sewer up through there, and they had a faulty water line, or it was undersized right through there, and I think they corrected all that.
And they're also working to fix leaks as well, so they have a lot going on, but the infrastructure is adequate to provide us water, yes.
Because I want to say that it shrunk right down right there, and it was fine up 20, and it was fine on Route
Yeah.
12, and it shrunk there, and they eliminated that part, so, to my knowledge. So I believe it's good, so.
Yep, so we're starting those discussions, try and get that ball bouncing forward to make sure that when we do the water line extension to connect the two lines, we actually have an agreement with Aquarian in place to get water in the line.
Okay.
So that's priority one. As far as the East Charlton line goes, gonna be working with Chris McClure to have him do an RFP for a design engineer, so that we can get an engineer to come in, actually design and oversee the construction of that project, so.
Now, where's this gonna go now? It was originally set to go down on, can't think of it, Glenmere and.
Yes.
And out by George Street and out that
Yes.
way to Route 20. But now we have petitioned, when a new construction to Route 20 comes, which is
Yes.
supposed to be just, 2 years from now?
Right.
To run a line down Route 20.
So-
So I guess my question is, which line would we be using, the Route 20 line or the line on the other?
Route 20. This line is gonna extend from the intersection of Route 20 and Glenmere Road
Yeah,
easterly on 20 to meet with Oxford's current infrastructure in Route 20.
Which I think is like Schmidt Equipment, Jebex, something.
Part of the
like that.
grant is for economic development, and they're focused on that Route 20 portion of commercial property on that portion of Route 20. So the grant is specific to run down Route 20.
okay.
So that's where the line's gonna go. Now,
So
we still
won't
have,
be using the Glenmere unless we feed off into some.
unless there's a need for contamination up on George Street to activate it and extend it or feed off of it, then no, we probably will not, depending on how many users are interested in using it. But right now, the priority is to connect Route 20 only and get water to the affected properties in that area of Route 20. And also have water available to the vacant parcels where there isn't the water line at this time. So,
Mhm. So basically, we'll be able to activate it down the road, but as it is right now,
And Southbridge water coming this way is gonna stop at ADT? Or is it gonna go to Richardson's Corner? I didn't think.
Southbridge water right now is stopped at North Side Road.
No, I don't mean now, I mean.
After the ExxonMobil loop, is
Yeah.
gonna stop at Worcester Road. Old Worcester Road to Route 20, and it's gonna stop there. We're not gonna activate any other lengths of water line on Route 20 at this time, because there's not enough usage.
Yeah.
So because the treatment processes are different for both water supplies. We're gonna have to do a true disconnect in the line so that there can be no intermingling or commingling of the water supply. So my first thought is to make that disconnect right at that, on Route 20, at that Berry Corner Road, Old Worcester, not Berry Corner, Old Worcester Road and, Carroll Hill
Carroll
Road,
Hill, yeah.
in that area.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding. Southbridge would not go further anyhow because of the distance.
Correct, yes, and it's a 12-inch line with minimal users at this time. So, and then if someone wants to connect, if there's a large enough user, we can feed them from Oxford that way if there's enough capacity.
This proposed line coming down Route 20 from Oxford, is that a 12-inch too? I mean, are we gonna have problems with residency in a line if it's that big?
I'm gonna have to ask Chris on that. I'm not sure exactly how he spec'd that out for preliminary design. I'm not sure if he did an 8-inch or a 10 or a 12. I know we have a 12 there. I don't know what Oxford has.
And I think too, it really depends on what process Oxford has for, length or, time in the pipe really matters a lot with Southbridge.
Yes.
It might not matter so much, turnover wise with Oxford, depending on their treatment processes.
I don't know where it's coming from in Oxford.
I know it's wells. They have well supply, whereas Southbridge is a, surface water, so.
Do they have a treatment plant now?
I'm sure they have some type of treatment plant. I'm not sure exactly to what extent or how they treat, so the water age might not be such a driving factor, but
It matters, it might not be.
I'm sure Chris will be able to fill us in more on that as we get a little bit further in design. So,
But I think we got a pretty good handle, on what's there and, not to oversize it, not to undersize it, but just, find that happy medium.
So I met with Tim Russell at the Army Corps of Engineers on Friday to reopen the possibility of exploring down there for a public water supply well. And the first meeting was good. There was no big roadblocks that came up right away, so it's definitely worth. I'm gonna spend some more time moving forward, making some more phone calls, try and reach out to DEP and see kind of what happened and why and what I should look forward to trying to move forward. What should I anticipate moving forward to make sure that we don't run into the same roadblocks again.
Yeah, is it worth it or not?
So I talked to Beta, and again, because of the grant, that $200,000 grant, we're only using about $120,000 of it. We have funds available to use for trying to find the public water supply well. So if ever is the time to do it, now's the time. ExxonMobil's running the line halfway down there to the school. We have the $5 million bond bill. If it's ever gonna line up and work, now is gonna be the time, so. Again, I plan on just reaching out and talking to, like I said, I wanna reach out to DEP. I reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers, gonna talk to Beta after the first of the year to try and see what they have to say. They currently have all the information from Ty and Bond, from all the comprehensive water, management plans that were done. And, at first glance, it seems like there's definitely potential, and maybe a couple of new directions we can try and go. So, I'm a little optimistic that we might be able to get something to happen, so.
Perfect.
It's a possibility. I sent you the email regarding the water privilege fee about what I found based on that. I forget the exact date of the meeting, but the meeting minutes don't reference the motion that was made. It referenced some discussion, but Norma actually found a video, a CD of the meeting, so we watched that, found the actual time when it was discussed, and got the actual motion, and I transcribed the motion from the video, and that should be in your email. I think we're gonna have to really spend some time and discuss this and figure out how the commission wants to move forward with the privilege fee, especially seeing when the betterments are assessed, it's kind of a little bit easier to assess a privilege fee. Now that betterments are all being rescinded and the abutters are getting that money back, it's hard to, I don't know if it's hard, it's a discussion that you're gonna have if you want to charge the same properties on the same line a privilege fee when nobody else actually even paid a betterment, so. It's gonna be an interesting discussion, and you guys are gonna have to kinda think about how you wanna move forward with it, so. And then, where the betterment got rescinded, that's not the entire line, so in other areas of town where there were betterments, or where there wasn't this contamination and people weren't affected, do those people get privilege fees and not the other people, so. I think it might be a good idea to maybe have an off-night workshop, maybe in January or February, just to sit down and everything, just have some, couple round-the-table discussions about, and talk it through and see where you guys end up, and then you can formalize it at another meeting,
Like a brainstorming session.
definitely.
Yeah, and I think it depends heavily on where things go consecutively. Because
Yes.
that's, whether you wanna just stick with connection fees or, vice versa, it's gonna really dictate where things are at.
So I will,
Because if we keep things the same, I think the half reason why we were talking about the privilege fees is, we're still responsible for the pipe.
yes,
So if something breaks, we technically don't have any income to support fixing it.
Correct.
So just so the public and everybody knows, hence why we're talking about this. If we do take over, yes, maybe the connection fees will all work out and it'll be fine. If not, we might have to assess some sort of privilege fee to offset, any debts and.
Self-check or privilege fee?
yes,
Thank you.
Privilege fee or connection fee?
I'm sure they have both. I'll double check that,
It's a great question.
double check.
I don't know if they have a privilege fee on the existing, like on,
Well,
Their infrastructure's so old that it's hard to know. Again, when betterments were done, if privilege fees are done, so I'll ask.
so not all the betterments are going to be paid back by ExxonMobil.
No, I believe all of the betterments are.
So,
Actually, I shouldn't say that, I'll have to double check that.
I think the goal was to kind of wipe the slate clean. So
Okay.
where that exactly falls, I don't know if.
And that's a good question as well, because infrastructure was put all the way out in east, on Route 20 near the Oxford line, and are those betterments getting
right,
wiped
so
out as well, so.
that would be good to
Yep.
know. Thank you.
Sure. So I was talking to Robin Craver the other day about kind of what we have going on here, and because she was involved before I was hired, she was kind of more involved with what was going on. I asked if she wanted me to go in front of the Board of Selectmen to kind of give them an update of where we're at with all these projects, and she said yes, so. I just kind of put a rundown of where we're at, and it's kind of probably good information for us to talk about as well, about what I plan on presenting to them tomorrow for pretty much discussion only, just for their information.
Sorry.
So we have,
You know
again,
my
we have
husband's at a
four
rock,
main
yeah.
projects going on. The first one's the Casella Water Line Extension. It's at 30% design. Tie-in Bond is working with Southbridge on doing that design. Chris McClure is there on our behalf, again, overseeing the design to make sure that, because we're gonna own the line when it's done, that everything's kinda done up to par. Jim Philbrook, the Board of Health agent, is still working on getting as many residents in the area as possible to connect to that water line. There are approximately 60 parcels signed up to connect at this time, and there are 30 parcels remaining that they're still waiting on information back to try and, they're trying to get them to commit to connecting.
Is there a number that we need to have? Or they
The
need to
number
have?
I saw in the ACO was 9 people from 3 different areas, so it was 27. So we, as far as we're responsible for in the ACO, I believe we've satisfied those requirements. One
Thank you.
requirement was we had to purchase the land for the pump station, which we did. And the second was to guarantee so many connections, which with these 60, I believe we're over what we had to.
Great.
So, there is gonna be an informational meeting on January 9th, 7 PM in this room, the Selectmen's Meeting Room. So, if anybody's interested, please come to the meeting and Ty and Bond should be here, and they should be able to answer any questions for abutters to that water line extension. The time frame for construction of that project is May to December 2018. The Route 169 pump station is at 90% design. Everything is in front of the DEP, various departments in DEP to get their final approvals. Kleinfelder plans on bidding the project in February of 2018, and that time frame for construction is similar to the construction water line and is March to November of 2018.
Okay,
Ex-
good news.
Yeah, so again, then you have the school loop, that is also at 90% design, and they're just kind of, again, getting their final touches on that through DEP, trying to figure out where that water age analysis is. There's still a couple of small questions there, where the pump stations and if they're gonna need PRVs in certain areas. And that should be done. As far as time frame for that construction goes, that's definitely gonna be a two-season project. Hopefully, they're gonna break ground next summer. I don't believe in my discussions with Kleinfelder that they're going to do any physical connections in that construction season. So they plan to install the water main, do the laterals and curb stops, and move forward. And once that's all done, tested, they're gonna go back and do the physical connections to the residences. So,
They did that the last time with Northside Road and some of the other places.
I asked Moira when she was planning on having their next informational meeting, and she says, after they go out to bid and they have more answers, they will, have their follow-up informational meeting before construction begins to let the residents know what their plan of attack will be. So, she's not sure, again, we talked about how many crews they plan on having and how they're gonna kind of choreograph the whole installation, because if you look at that school loop and what roads, but, you have Old Worcester Road, you have Mugget Hill Road, a couple major roads in town, depending on how they do the construction, it can really kind of interfere with traffic. So trying to get a meeting with her, highway, police, and fire beforehand to figure out the best way to kind of, set up the construction process so that traffic impact is at a minimum. So, like I said, they'll definitely have a public meeting to let the people know how that process is gonna move forward. So, and then, I guess the last big construction project is at East Charlton Extension. Like I said, we've got, work with Chris McClure to get that RFP to get a design engineer for design and oversight of that actual water line. Our time frame from the grant is to have that designed by, I believe it was the end of February 2018, so it doesn't give us a lot of time to do that. The only good thing is I believe a lot of the surveying is done from Mass Highway, so they should, hopefully, whoever does get it can just get those stations from Mass Highway and start designing the water line. So, I emailed Chris today, hopefully I'll talk to him and see what we can come up with, try and get that RFP out sooner than later to get that design engineer on base. With all of those projects, we talked about, I guess, oversight, and the Casella project, Ty and Bond is their design engineer and oversight, so they're gonna design it and they're gonna oversee the entire installation of that water line, no matter who gets the contract to do the construction. Southbridge is gonna have their people go and do spot inspections, and talking with Steve Wanlin, I believe, he's gonna be able to do that on our behalf, to go to the weekly construction meetings, to work with the contractors and provide our oversight from our department, just to kind of double check everything that's going on. And the same thing with the ExxonMobil projects, whether it's the pump station or the school loop, they're gonna have a resident engineer on site, overseeing the construction and preparing the as-built plans. So I think with Steve to again, work with them with their weekly construction meetings and provide the oversight on our behalf will save us having to hire an engineer to do so. I think it should work out pretty good. So.
Go ahead.
Steve gonna do as-bills
No, the engineer's gonna provide the as-bills.
for both?
For all the projects.
okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get design as-built from the engineer of each project.
Steve will be, make sure there's a foot of gravel there, that, that kind of stuff, taking the pictures, making sure, quality control is there. So, and like me and Peter had a discussion, because I was kind of gravely concerned about having 3 large projects going on after living the project that we went through the town here, and to Peter's point, he brought up a great point, which was the Casella Loop and the Exxon Mobil school loop, we're not gonna have a whole ton of oversight in it. So it's not gonna be heavily involved, we'll just be kind of monitoring it, making sure quality control. The Oxford line, or the Route 20 line, as we wanna call it, or whatever, that one's gonna probably take quite a bit of manpower from this board and this department, and we'll be making decisions on that pretty regularly. So that one's gonna be very similar to like what we had up at the center of town here. So, which is good, that means, technically, we're really only kind of in charge of one kind of major project, so, that's good to hear.
And then the last thing I want to talk about is just hit on Buffinville again to let them know that, kind of reopening that process and kind of reiterate what I told you guys tonight, that very initial meeting, and it's kind of no big roadblocks at this time, so.
When's Beta gonna start working on that?
So I tentatively have a meeting for that first or second week in January, and they're planning on coming to your January 22nd meeting. Because, again, the priority for Beta is to finish up the water master plan stuff.
Yep.
And then hopefully they have time to add this in as well, so. I wanna meet with them on everything in that first or second week in January, and have them in front of you for your meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
To kind of update you on everything they have going on, and we can talk about some of the other stuff at
Okay.
the same time, so. Because once January 22nd hits, the construction season's just around the corner, so once we get there, it's gonna go.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. That's it for me.
Good. Anything else?
Do you wanna send out a, email so people can respond, so we can set up a time to do the brainstorming?
I'll do that. For everyone here, that would be our off night's the 15th of January. Does that work for you guys? I mean, I know it's almost a month away, but
Sure.
I'll just,
Sure, why not?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And just, the next scheduled meeting is January 8th of 2018, for all those out there, so, all right. Motion adjourned. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, everybody.